Do you want to just tell us a little bit about what, perhaps in the early days, what were some of the ingredients that made it intergenerational? If somebody is here sort of going, well, we understand an Anglican communion, but we understand Sunday school. What's the difference?
Well, in intergenerational worship, we encourage people to talk to each other. We encourage people to use different gifts and skills. So, for example, people are encouraged in some of these to write prayers, to write messages, to draw pictures. We've used reflective slideshows in some of the ones we've done. Intergenerational worship gives people an opportunity to use different gifts. So even if they're not leading the service, everybody can use their gifts in different ways. Where in a traditional service, I don't think there's the same opportunity for everybody to do that. So people have the chance to speak, to pray, whereas they don't have that voice all the time. And one of the things that's been mentioned to me this week was how important it is for the children to have a voice.
Mm-hmm.
And this is an opportunity for those children to have a voice and be heard. But many other people get the chance to speak too, to share their opinions and what they've learned.
How would you see it as, so one of the things that struck me about it is I sort of come in and call it cafe church because it looks like cafe church. People are sat around tables, children are delighted because there's often some biscuits, which is a rare treat. Like what's the point of sitting around tables, and how is it perhaps different from cafe church?
One of the main aims we have is to encourage people to talk to each other, especially across generations.
Yes.
Not just children to adults, but young people with not so young people, is also building new relationships. So a focus of intergenerational worship is on building relationships.
And I think that's something I can say that I've observed coming in, is that we're a church that's quite rapidly grown. We've had an influx of people from all around the world and different nationalities who have come in, and everybody sort of said it's one of the quickest ways of suddenly being included, because when you're sat on a table of 8 and you're asked to do something together, nobody is left out. I know that can be a little bit threatening for some people, but the majority of people find that just incredibly helpful, for having met somebody by name and going away going, well, somebody knows me, so if I come back next week, there's somebody to say hello to.
That's right. And it's also much more welcoming to people who are non-church.
Yeah, I think, not that people wouldn't be welcomed otherwise, but you go beyond just hello, because you're sat there for an hour together. Yeah, I was going to say, what are some of the other benefits that you've sort of found coming out across the time?
We try and focus on different themes so that people get time to think about a theme. You can't just come along, sit there and go away. You've got to explore, to think. We certainly aim to help people engage with God in different ways. In one particular service, we had a theme of prayer, and some of the people who worked there wrote some brilliant prayers, which we've used in services since, because it was so good. So it's a different way of engaging with God, and it's a way that can be more personal.
What are some of the sort of challenges that you've had or people have had, kind of particularly in the initial few months?
I think many of the challenges involve people's perception of what worship is. That worship has to involve some kind of ritual, some degree of formality, rather than its focus should be on engaging with God and engaging with each other as we engage with God.
One of the things that you do that is really, really helpful is this is what's going to happen in the service. And so even though it's not the same as using a liturgy that we use every single week, there is a sense that there is a shape.
Some people are very afraid of talking about their faith. And yet, interestingly, it's people who are non-churched who find the service less threatening.
One of the things that I've found is that before people get to the point where they're comfortable to discuss the Bible, just starting with simple scenarios where two people who don't know each other ask some really basic questions.
And you come up with some very good starter questions.
I love questions, but sort of even things like, what's your favourite biscuit? It's amazing how much that suddenly breaks down fear, because people can talk about biscuits, or people can talk about what's one good thing that happened this week, or what did you watch on television this week. And sometimes you talked about fear quite a lot, and fear of change.
Yes.
And sometimes when you experience a small change that feels good, that's the impetus to start bigger ones. So it could almost be an intergenerational 5 minutes. That could be a starting point. And so we're in that fortunate position that people are used to there being a wide variety of things on offer. And I think our hope is that some of the principles of the intergenerational worship will actually influence other services and how people relate together.
Yes, I think people at first had a big fear of change.
Which I think anybody who's ever done anything in church leadership will understand.
We have seen a steady growth in attendance at these services. Intergenerational worship allows people to talk to each other, to meet each other, and I think the church has become more relaxed, friendlier, and we've grown together.